First Take. We're here on a very busy Wednesday. My goodness, the world of sports really delivered an all-timer to us last night, and today we're going to get right into it. Hi, I am Shay Cornett. Mad Dog Chris Russo back in town. So is Dan Orlowski. He's back from Indy, and down in South Beach is Stephen A. Smith. Good morning, everyone. We'll do hello and pleasantries in a little bit. In the meantime, let's get to some breaking news this morning from ESPN's Adam Schefter. The Ravens wasting no time scooping up defensive end Trey Hendrickson this morning in the wake of the Maxx Crosby deal falling apart yesterday. The Ravens have agreed to a 4-year deal with $112 million plus incentives. That means Hendrickson stays in the AFC North. He'll face Joe Burrow and the Bengals now twice this season as he becomes part of the Ravens. Here is Adam Schefter earlier on Get Up with more.
It's a deal worth up to $30 million a year. And as we mentioned in the first hour, Greeny, the Baltimore Ravens initially were talking to Trey Hendrickson about playing with Maxx Crosby. So they were talking to him all along. Now Maxx Crosby gets taken out of the equation, and Trey Hendrickson reaches an agreement on a 4-year deal with the Ravens that will keep him in Baltimore, and he will now stay in the AFC North. He had been looking for guaranteed money. He had been looking for stability. He had been looking for a long-term deal. Baltimore gives him those particular long-term deals, and that's a situation where he felt like this was his spot. By the way, he's calling right now, so we could talk to him. Hold on one second. Talk to those guys. Yes, sir, we're on Get Up right now.
Only Adam Schefter. Hold on, Trey Hendrickson on the phone with me right now. But he taught us a lot there and what we learned. Obviously, the Ravens were prioritizing something, and now they end up not with Maxx Crosby, but with Trey Hendrickson. Your reaction to this, Stephen A.?
Well, the Ravens win the day because when you miss out on Maxx Crosby, the fact is everybody's looking at it and saying, what the hell is going on? You knew he was coming off an injury. You knew what a stud he was. You wanted him on your squad, and then the deal was supposedly agreed upon it, and all of a sudden you renege because you're claiming a physical, and then you end up with Trey Hendrickson. In the end, the Ravens win no matter which way you slice it because Trey Hendrickson can ball. We all know that. We know that coming into this past season, he was a sack leader with over 35 sacks over the previous 2 years, so he could really get to the quarterback, and that's what your need is. If you're the Baltimore Ravens, you were bereft of significance when it comes to getting to the pass rusher last season, getting to the quarterback last season, and you knew that was a priority that needed to be addressed. So when they lost out on Crosby, I was like, oh my goodness, he must be really bad physically. That was your initial presumption. But then you turn around and you see that they got him, and you're saying to yourself, maybe they had this in the plans all along. Maybe this came to fruition as the days progressed when you knew that Maxx Crosby was going to end up in your squad. But Adam Schefter just educated us that the Ravens arguably was pursuing both and trying to get both. The fact that they ended up getting Hendrickson, 31 years of age, just played in 7 games last year due to a slew of injuries, but 74.5 sacks over the last 6 seasons, which ranks 3rd most in the National Football League behind only Myles Garrett and T.J. Watt. You can't sniff at that. You can't poo-poo that. You can't dismiss that. That's a big-time pickup for the Baltimore Ravens. And to get him away from a team within the division in the AFC North is also a plus as well. So I don't think that we can look at this and say anything bad about what the Ravens did here. They ended up getting what they needed, what they wanted, and you got to give props to them for doing that.
Well, you have to trust the GM of the Ravens that he didn't have buyer's remorse and all of a sudden say, hold on now, I can get Hendrickson, I'll do it for this price. You know what, I can keep the draft picks, and maybe we are a little worried about the injury. Let's shift him back. Now, if you believe the organization of the Ravens is trustworthy, you will not even pay attention to that. But if you're a Raider fan right now, it says, hold on now, let me get this straight. Now, I know Hendrickson was available, but if you're a Raider fan, it says, hold on, we traded him 4 days ago, all right? And now they decide, and we thought you had the 2 picks, and now all of a sudden they decide they don't want him. And his Hendrickson on the team, and I don't buy the fact that they were going to sign both defensive linemen at $35 million a year. You're going to have 2 defensive linemen making $70 million. I don't know if they would have done that. They can say that, but I don't necessarily buy that. So if you're a Raven fan, if you're a Raiders fan, you're going to say, hold on now. You're going to raise your eyebrow, and you're going to say, they got Hendrickson 2 days, 1 second after they vetoed the trade with us, and why didn't they do this originally? So I can understand a Raider fan and the Raider organization raising some very curious eyebrows, Danny, on this whole situation.
Yeah, so in relation to that, I do think it's just that one of those, what changed? What changed? Because in the initial trade, you know that the surgery happened. You had to know, talking to the people representing Maxx Crosby or the Raiders, that he had just recently got off the crutches. So what did you expect the physical was going to look like? I'm not a doctor, but like, what changed in that time period? Mad Dog's 100% right. The Raiders are completely screwed here. They are the team that is getting the complete short end of the stick. And everyone's going, well, they can afford Max this year. It's not just this year that is really in play for the Raiders. The Raiders, as of yesterday morning in this free agency process, were going about the thought process, or with the thought process, that they have 4 first-round picks over the next 2 years. 4. That completely changes the way that you operate the now and the future to build for the likely young first overall pick in Fernando Mendoza. Now it's completely a different conversation. So that's like my initial thought. The 2 others initially are, is Baltimore done? Because not only does Baltimore still have some cash now, they still have their picks. Does Baltimore get into the A.J. Brown conversation? Because they have a first-round pick and this year and next year at their disposal, and maybe a little bit more financial freedom. And the other element that is attached to this is now an enormous opportunity for teams like Philadelphia, who's notorious for striking when the market is lesser, with the Saquon Barkley, with the Landon Dickerson, with the Jalen Carter. Huge opportunity for Philadelphia. Huge opportunity for Buffalo, who just restructured Josh Allen's cap to get under the number today. Huge opportunity for a team like the Los Angeles Rams.
Okay.
Maxx Crosby's value is going to be less in a trade now than it certainly was when this one initially was executed.
Couple of pointed things to bring up here. Number one, we feel bad for Maxx Crosby because obviously this deal fell through, and there's some question marks about him, because anytime you sit up there and you're going to allude to a failed physical, that raises an eyebrow and that gives you cause to pause. And I'm not sure he deserves that. That's number one. Number two, we also have to feel sorry for him because he's still a Raider. Let's call it what it is. The only thing to celebrate about the Las Vegas Raiders is the fact that Tom Brady is there, and you hope that things are going to get better. Fernando Mendoza is coming with the number 1 overall pick, but as a team, you just look at them and they say they're sorry. Sin City, my goodness, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. We always thought that applied to the city. Now it applies to the Raiders as well. What happens in Vegas stays the hell there. Nobody's really interested right now outside of Tom Brady. If you're interested in Tom Brady, that's about it. When it comes to the Baltimore Ravens, here's what we've got to look at here. 28th in the NFL in sacks with just 30 last season. Ranked 29th in quarterback pressures. We got to pay attention to that. Total defense 24th. Pass defense 30th. Tied for 28th in sacks, like I just pointed out. So Trey Hendrickson is definitely a plus. Now, Dan, you brought up something very, very interesting where we need to go. I'm A.J. Brown. I'm begging to get myself to Baltimore because I got Lamar Jackson that's anxious to resurrect, his career after what happened to him last season, a bevy of injuries, his first losing season with a 6-7 record and 13 starts. He's going to come out ready to ball. Zay Flowers and those boys could ball. Derek, the King Henry had fumbleitis. He's anxious. I interviewed him during Super Bowl week. He's anxious to make amends for some of the things that transpired this season as well. So when you look at how motivated they are, because they missed the playoffs, okay? Because they didn't measure up to expectations, because they have a new coach that's relatively defensive-minded and mentor, okay? You go out offensively, you've got Lamar Jackson, you've got King Henry, you still got Flowers there, you lost a couple of tight ends, you want to go out there and get somebody like an A.J. Brown to offset those kind of losses. And if you're A.J. Brown, you want out of Philly, because I don't give a damn what anybody says, okay? Something's going on in Philly, whether it's with Jalen Hurts or whether it's with Nick Sirianni. He doesn't have faith in them the way a star wide receiver is supposed to have faith in a Super Bowl championship coach and a Super Bowl MVP in the quarterback. You would expect him to have more faith in them. He didn't appear to be that way all of last year. I don't think that's an accident. I think he wants out of Philadelphia, certainly not just to go anywhere. It has to be the right circumstance. But if anything qualified as the right circumstance for a star wide receiver in the National Football League, it's playing with Lamar Jackson as your quarterback and with King Henry as your running back. I think that's what A.J. Brown is going to look to do. We'll see what happens.
Okay. With that being said, there is news now from Adam Schefter that they have reworked Lamar Jackson's contract so they have a little more salary cap space. We'll get to the Ravens side of it all in a little bit, but let's go back to